So yeah.
Yeah, and that trust is so crucial, and it's something that's developed over time. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something that in some cases happens over months. So yeah, maintaining a really thoughtful relationship with clients is really crucial. Any activity that is illegal or potentially dangerous is not one that our staff would enter into. And so we're very grateful that we have this great working relationship with PD so that we can work together to solve some of these very complex problems and situations. Also, there are other ways that our team can help. Specifically, our maintenance ambassadors can step in and assist with a lot of different things. And I'd love to give the floor to our friend Charles, who can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, I can. We have ambassadors that are assigned to zones in our PID, and depending on the size of the zone and the traffic in the zone, we may have 2 ambassadors at one time, and then they're working day and night, cleaning the PID. We have power washers, and their jobs are to make sure that cleaning requests are done for graffiti, sometimes human waste, feces, urine. We have power washers that are in at night. And we also perform escorts. If one of our clients or any individual feel that they may be unsafe going to their cars at night, well, we're there to assist them and take them safely to the cars. So there's a lot of things that our ambassador do, and they do a very good job at it. I was once a maintenance ambassador, and we work as a team. We work as a team, and every individual there performs their jobs in a great way. So, you know, we're very proud of our ambassadors.
Oh, we are too. We're all so proud. Our ambassadors are amazing. I can't say enough positive things. They make us all so proud. Priscilla, let's go ahead and move forward to the next slide. We want to talk about winter weather. We're all aware the season's changing. It's getting colder. There's been freezing temperatures, lots of rain, which can make for miserable living conditions on the streets. Our team has been working really hard to place clients when on the nights that are particularly cold. But we've also partnered with the Weston Center to host a winter wear clothing drive. Weston Center is doing an amazing job receiving donated items, gloves, coats, scarves, and hats. They're actually receiving those in their lobby. Our campaign kicked off on November 9th, and it's going to run through Monday, December 14th. And then on the 14th, we're going to join forces with some employees and volunteers at the Weston Center to distribute these donated items to our clients during our morning point in time count. So I encourage everybody on this call, if you have gently used items that you'd like to donate, please do so this week. Or if you'd prefer to make an online donation, the Weston Center has set up an Amazon wish list where you can very easily do that with a point and a click. Morgan and Valerie, or Charles and Kathy, do any of you guys want to talk a little bit about what your experience has been with the cold weather very recently?
So luckily we've only had one freeze so far, some other really close calls, but just one particular freeze, and that was last week. And normally for individuals experiencing homelessness, should they want to come inside for the cold weather on those nights, there's usually a few resources that are available to them. But unfortunately, due to COVID, that's been kind of limited. So what we did is we partnered with a church that agreed to take in, I think it was about 80 individuals overnight. They were given a hot meal for dinner and breakfast tacos in the morning, and then brought back to a central location near the downtown area. So that was a great resource for us to turn to for individuals that did want help. Most of the individuals that we engaged with the night before or the day before the freeze, most of them didn't want to get off the street, and that's fine. They've been doing this for years and years and years, and they're survivors, and another winter is just another winter to them. But for those that did want help, or that as more freezes come, that's going to be a resource for them as well. And should they want to get off the street, that's definitely an option for them.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We realize that San Antonio, although it has a very warm climate, you know, there's some really difficult nights, and it's helpful to work together with the community to try to offer comfort and support to our most vulnerable. Let's move ahead to the next slide, Priscilla. And this will give us an opportunity to talk about how Centro measures our outreach activities. We can talk about some of the technology and tools that we use to track our work and really highlight some of the big wins of the last year. Morgan, do you want to talk us through this?
Yes, ma'am. So this is a general kind of snapshot of the reports that I send directly to Centro, and then they give to the city each month. So on here are all the services that we provide, and there's kind of a lot on here, so I'm just going to highlight a few of them. The first one I wanted to highlight was the food one. This includes the food, the snacks, and things that we hand out directly from our backpacks when we're out in the field. But this also includes the amount of meals that were served with our partnership with Corazon Ministries that served at the San Fernando Gym at the hub downtown 7 days a week. Individuals can go to that hub 7 days a week at 11 and get a meal there. So for the month of November, we had 2,134 meals, which brought us to 11,159 meals year to date. The next one that I wanted to highlight was community referrals. So this is anytime that we're engaging with somebody that is in need of going somewhere else for additional resources, we're going to provide them this referral. So sometimes this is referring them to CAM so they can get a sack lunch, or CAM for showers, referring them to the hub so they can get a hot meal and just telling them where they can go and what time. Haven for Hope, Salvation Army, it's just going to be anytime we're giving them additional information and pointing them in that direction of where they can go to get that. Another example of the community referrals that we provide is with our partnership with the San Antonio Street Medicine Team. This is a group of doctors and med students that come out and engage with our people directly on the street, right where they're at on a regular basis. So they'll come out, see them, examine them, and provide them whatever services that they can directly from their backpacks out in the street. So anytime we have them come out, we're going to count that here as well. The next one is APS collateral. This is Adult Protective Services. So this is a very valuable partnership that we have. We do call them pretty regularly and file Adult Protective Services cases. It's very similar to Child Protective Services, except it's for adults with disabilities. So many of our individuals, specifically those that are severely mentally ill, and sometimes they have a physical disability on top of that, and they're no longer able to take care of themselves. They don't necessarily have the competence to make proper decisions for themselves. We're going to reach out to Adult Protective Services, file a case with them, and then they'll send somebody out to meet with the individual to see if they can place them somewhere, or if they can remove them from the street altogether and put them somewhere where they need to be that'll be much safer for them. The next one on the right-hand side under client successes is SSI and SSDI reinstatements. I talked about this one a few slides ago. This is for individuals that should be receiving their disability or their SSI, but for whatever reason aren't. So what we'll do is we'll assist them with getting that money back to them. We didn't have any for the month of November, but year to date, we've reinstated benefits for 6 individuals, and that's been a total of over $31,000 in back pay that we've gotten back for them. And then the last one is total exits. So anytime we exit an individual to somewhere ideally much more permanent than the street, you know, some place safe for them, and we're definitely gonna strive for that permanent piece so that they don't come back to the street. Sometimes that means that we continue to follow up with them and work with them months after they've been placed, but that's just to ensure that they do not come back to the street or they don't return to their homelessness. So for the month of November, we had 11 people that we were to place somewhere much more permanent. That could include a shelter, such as Haven for Hope or Salvation Army. That could be a group home or a nursing home, or reunited with family or their own apartment through a permanent supportive housing unit. It just kind of depends. So we had 11 for the month of November, and year to date, we've exited 150 individuals from the downtown area to a more permanent placement.
You guys have been busy, very, very, very busy. There's so much great work that you guys have done. And really, the technology that we have really captures a lot of the data and allows us to monitor our work, but also monitor hotspots and homeless activity in the PID. The PID as being our public improvement district downtown. Priscilla, let's move ahead to the next slide. And we can talk a little bit about our point in time counts. We conduct those daily. Valerie, do you want to speak a little bit about what we do, how it works, and how it's beneficial for the outreach work that we do?
Sure. So every morning our team does a count in the downtown area. We take the same path every morning, the same time strategically. And what we do is we count the population of homelessness and also place their locations of where they're heavily populated. And the benefit to that is we provide this number for the city. And since we do know those homeless individuals in the downtown area, who isn't homeless, if someone might present homeless, but we know they're not homeless, we know they're staying in a specific spot or have an apartment or whatever the case is, we can provide a realistic number to the actual count of homelessness going on in the downtown area. It benefits us as a team to just kind of do that overall count. We do it from a truck because we can kind of get like a gauge on what our day is going to look like, what areas are busier, if it looks like someone is struggling, if we see a new face that we've never seen before, I'll make a mental note with my partner and say, hey, or the team and say, hey, that person looks new. We might want to go back and kind of engage with that person. So it really benefits our team, but that's kind of how it also benefits the realistic number that we can provide for the city.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very helpful to get a lay of the land each day and really be able to pinpoint where our clients are so that we can circle back and reconnect. Moving ahead to the monthly slide, let's talk about what we've seen over the last few months. We started the daily point in time counts in March. Have there been any major changes, fluctuations, any trends that you guys are seeing?
No, not really. And that was kind of the reasoning behind starting this point in time count, was to provide evidence and something strong to prove that there hasn't been a significant increase in homelessness. And that's something that's constantly being talked about, especially as COVID is going on, where are all these homeless people coming from? Are there more homeless people down here than normal? And that was kind of the strategy with doing the point in time count, is because, as you can see from this, is we're really not seeing a significant increase in homelessness in the downtown area. What we are seeing is that it's more obvious that they're there because there's nobody else downtown in the downtown area. You're used to seeing tourists and people going to work and it just being constantly busy. And unfortunately, because of COVID, that's just not happening. So if you go downtown right now, what you're primarily going to see are the ambassadors, the police, us, and the homeless. And that's just kind of the situation right now. So the great thing about these point in time counts is that as we continue to do them, we're going to continue to monitor trends to see if we see an increase. And as from looking at this graph, you can see that it's been relatively steady over the last several months.
Yeah, it's from this viewpoint, we have a lot of understanding, and it's kind of easier for us to strategically allocate our resources and our time as well. Moving ahead to the next slide. I'd love to hear more from you guys about what you're seeing, just kind of your general observations, any patterns or trends you're seeing among the homeless community downtown. And then also, I'd love to kind of talk through some of the challenges that you guys are facing in the work that you're doing.
Right, so general observations is we're always going to see these specific hotspots in the downtown area, and that's just because there's general more traffic when there is traffic downtown in these areas. So that's going to be Houston Street, Commerce Street. There's always going to be a larger population of homelessness on those streets. Now, whether that's because there's more in the trash cans, because there's more from the general population for them to dig through those trash cans, or because there's more panhandling opportunities, it's just always going to look like there's much more of a homelessness problem on those streets. Specifically near Lucky's Corner Store on Commerce and the Aztec Corner Store in Main Plaza, you're going to see a large presence of substance abuse, specifically alcoholics. And that's because those are those areas where they can have access to buying alcohol. You've got 2 convenience stores there where they can go in and buy beer from, and they're going to go and they're going to park it right outside while they're drinking their beer. And then specifically in Main Plaza, they can drink there because it's a park, and so there's nothing stopping them from doing that. So you're always going to see those areas as hot spots. It's something that we're continuously monitoring and that PD is well aware of. Anytime we're looking for somebody specific, we know that we can go to those areas to find them. And then the second point there is homelessness is more apparent during the pandemic. And this just goes back to the point I made on the last slide, where it is more apparent, it's more obvious right now, it's magnified right now because there's just nobody else out on the street.
Some of the trends that we also see, and this is why it's also important to have strong relationships with like SAPD, The drug use downtown, synthetic marijuana, that's really heavy downtown. It's cheap for them to buy and it's easily accessible. But we will coordinate or communicate with PD, and they'll let us know when there's a significant batch going around that's flipping people into overdose mode. So we can kind of walk in a different awareness of those areas where we know synthetic marijuana is used, the different areas, we can kind of walk in a different awareness of that. Also, the growing trends that we see, especially with the pandemic, of tents popping up, where they're popping up, where these encampments are coming from. If they're new to homelessness, if they're ready for services, we can kind of have a different awareness of that. And then kind of work with partners to see how we can come together to get those individuals the help that they need when they're ready for it. Also triggered behavior, like we've seen that trend kind of happen with the pandemic going on. Even though the number of homelessness hasn't really changed, their behavior definitely has. For example, we've got individuals downtown who usually walk around digging through the trashes. It's just learned behavior. It's just what they do. And with restaurants being closed, there's not food in the trash cans for them to dig for. It creates some, frustrations, things like that. We keep mind of the different patterns of the unexpected weather that happens when the hurricanes hit. We had people coming from Houston. We had, so we walk in a different awareness of who kind of strays behind, or did anyone get stuck here from San Antonio from those places, and how can we help to maybe get them back to a safe location or help them get off the street.
Yeah, and then some of the challenges that we face. So specifically when you're dealing with the population that we deal with downtown is that chronic population. There's different types of homelessness, and that's the population that we work with. That is the chronic population that has severe mental illness, and sometimes it's just made worse by their substance use that they're using to self-medicate for their mental health issues. So a lot of times we, as the general public, it's easy for us to say, well, why don't they just go to Haven, or why don't they just go to a shelter in general? Why don't they just get help? And so that's some of the challenges that we wanted to talk about here. Is it's not always that easy. There are barriers for individuals to get help. For instance, if somebody wants to go to Detox, that doesn't mean that there's going to be a detox bed available for them when they're ready. If they say, hey, I'm ready, I don't want to do drugs anymore, get me help, and I take them to Detox, I can't guarantee that they're going to get a bed there, which means that they're going to come back to the street. If they do complete Detox by some miracle, there's not a guarantee that there's going to be a bed for them in a treatment program. There's a wait list for many of the treatment programs that are offered to individuals that don't have funding. If they don't have health insurance, there's not too many resources available to them, and those that are waitlisted. And so while they're waiting for that bed, where are they going to go? They're going to come back to the street, and they're going to relapse, and they're going to use again. For shelter, it's not an easy thing to do. The Courtyard is our low barrier shelter, and that's still an option for men. But if they want to pursue member side, there's barriers for that. They have to have an ID or a mugshot. They have to meet 9 months of residency. They have to be sober. They have to be able to pass the urinalysis. There are a lot of things that are keeping them from taking those steps forward. And then of course, the whole system itself is very complicated to navigate. And then the other thing is that a lot of these individuals, especially when we're dealing with the chronically homeless, is that they've been homeless for 10 plus years. So putting them in an environment such as an apartment and moving them into a permanent supportive housing unit isn't a fix either. What we've seen is that several of the individuals that have been placed in permanent supportive housing units have returned to the street. One of them actually burned her apartment down after we placed her in it, and it did not work out, and she's back out on the street. Another one, he has his own apartment, but he continues to spend day after day after day down in the downtown in the pit. So it's not a fix for us just to place them somewhere. It requires a lot of case management. It requires addressing many other things that aren't always addressed with just placing them somewhere.
Yes, and although our team and our clients are often hitting roadblocks, it's really encouraging to know that our partners are working alongside us to find solutions to better assist our clients. And there are so many examples of client success stories. There are a few that we hope to share with you today. A word of caution to all of our guests. You may get a bit teary-eyed. I usually feel a little weepy when I hear these stories. Morgan, this particular client is near and dear to you. I know you spent months and months working with her. Can you share a little bit about her story?
Yeah, so this is the first client that I just kind of latched onto that I became, we need to move to the next slide. Perfect, there we go. So this is a client that I became very attached to very quickly. She was 75 years old and she had very obvious dementia. Again, my grandmother passed away from dementia this past year, so I'm very familiar with the disease and how it progresses and what it looks like. So I spotted that pretty quickly with her. She did suffer with some alcohol abuse, but most of the time I would just stop, sit with her, and just talk. Most of the times our conversations never made much sense. Her mental health had deteriorated quite a bit in the time that she'd been on the street. As far as I know, she'd been homeless for the last 10 years or so, with no intentions of changing that. And so what I did is what we do every day, which is I just built that relationship with her. I got to know her as a person, learned about her history, her past, and just really truly saw her for who she was and not her situation and not her episode of homelessness. Over time, she just talked to me about how she was receiving disability benefits, or SSI. But what I quickly realized is that I never saw any signs of that. She never had a debit card. She never had a check that came in the mail. She didn't have a mailbox. I never saw her with a purse or a wallet or anything. So what we did is we started looking into it. I assisted her and I took her to the Social Security office. And there we found out, they told me, they said, yeah, she is supposed to be receiving these benefits, but we didn't have an address to send it to. I said, well, that's easy. You can just send it to our office and, I'll give the checks to her. So sure enough, a couple weeks later, I had several checks that had come in and she had over $15,000 in back pay from the last several years of not getting any money. And I was like, great, now we can do something. But what I realized was that no, we couldn't, because you can't cash a check without an ID. So we needed to start that process. So we worked with the HOPE team. But again, that was a process too. You can't get an ID when you have over 100 citations. So I had to take her to the courthouse. We had to work out those citations. She had over 100 of them for camping, public intoxication, criminal trespassing. And they were really just kind of hindering her from moving forward. So eventually we worked it all out, and she was placed in a permanent supportive housing unit with wraparound case management and services. But due to her dementia, it wasn't necessarily a permanent fix, but we were able to connect her and reunite her with her daughter. She now spends lots of time with the many grandchildren that she has. She's sober. She just had cataract surgery to fix her eyes because she was blind in one eye. And she's no longer sleeping out in the cold anymore. So that one was a big one. It was a very time-consuming one. And that was the other thing, is that while we highlight these cases, these aren't like, when I was working with this woman, she wasn't the only woman I was working with at that time. We have 100 or so people on our caseload at any given time that we all four share. But that's a lot of people that we're all trying to juggle to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks. But it was worth it in the end, and she definitely, got where she needed to be.
Yeah, her life was truly transformed in so many ways, and there are so many more stories like this one. Valerie, I invite you to share on the next slide.
Yes, absolutely.
Another client whose life also changed significantly. I love this story. I can't wait to hear it again.
Absolutely, and I love that we're doing this with you guys, because giving y'all kind of behind the scenes look of what it looks like to break down so many different walls that we hit and barriers. So you're able to kind of see what that looks like just from 3 of the hundreds of people that we've engaged with and worked with. So this individual has been in the downtown area for years, and she was elderly, obviously. Her mental health was deteriorating very quickly, along with her physical state. And I started engaging with her several years ago. Almost 5 years ago. And at first she would kind of growl at me, literally growl at me, grr, when I tried to talk to her. PD tried to work with her. Marjorie, who you might hear from, tried to, help her several times. It's just, she was one of those clients that just her mental health was so far gone that she didn't even really realize that she was homeless. Through the season of it getting very cold, we were very worried about her. This took a village of partners to get her the help that she needed. I would engage with her every day. And even through her not being receptive to my help, I just showed my face to her and just let her know, even though she didn't want help, that I was definitely going to be there for her when she was ready. Somehow I found out that what she really liked was feminine products for some reason. So I started bringing her those every day, and she started slowly becoming receptive to me and just actually talking to me. She couldn't really give me her full name. Bike Patrol didn't really know her full name at the time. So it was a lot of puzzle pieces having to put together for her, just find out her story, does she have family, where she came from, history like that. Through that process, she allowed me to start kind of caring for her every day, making sure that she changed into dry clothes and things like that, had a jacket when it got cold. One day I found her in a nook, and I hadn't seen her for a little while, and one of her legs was missing. It turned out she had been hospitalized, and the condition of her physical condition brought her to being her leg being amputated. So that's when we really kicked into like overload mode of wanting to help her. Now her leg is amputated, her incision was bleeding out. I'm worried about infection. So I offered again the street medicine team to come out, the team that we talked about, to come help her. And she was still not receptive to help. One day the street medicine team came out and was helping another individual, one of our clients, at a bench right next to her. And somehow she noticed that, and she said she wanted help as well. It was really the door of the street medicine team that engaged and had her be receptive to that help. So they slowly started working with her. And then we had to eventually, because again, she wasn't ready to get off the street, we had to interact with like the mental health unit, the help with PD. We did file an APS case because everything else wasn't working. And so APS really, really helped in that situation. We had a clinician come out and really assess her and take time out to really get her into the hospital and get her the care that she needed. So she ended up getting placed into a nursing home. And even through that process of trying to get her benefits going, it was really amazing to see that she had been living under a whole different identity. She didn't know her name. The clinician that we connected with actually had a friend in the FBI that was able to find out her real identity. So that was a big win, to be able to, let her know what her real name was, and then put the rest of the puzzle pieces together to get her benefits going and things like that. So that was a really cool process to see with her.
It takes an incredible amount of patience and empathy, problem solving, and just love to be able to guide and support clients like this who don't even know their name. This story is absolutely incredible. Thank you, Valerie. And there's one more we want to highlight. It's on the next slide. This is also a very inspiring and uplifting story about a client who was ready when he was ready for help. It took a lot of coaxing and patience. Charles, would you like to tell us a little bit about this client?
Yes, I sure will. This is a very touching story, and it's just one of our biggest success stories. I came to meet this gentleman, affectionately known as our gentle giant in Alamo Plaza, when I first started working here. And I would pass him every day, and he's a big guy, not always groomed well, and his size could be a little bit intimidating. But one day I walked up and I spoke to him, and he had one of the softest smiles, gentle voice. And it was like, man, this guy is really, and he never asked anybody for anything. He never did want any of our help. Some of the merchants got so attached to him that they would bring him something to eat. And one of the merchants up there at the Ripley's, they even had a playlist. They played music out there, and they had a playlist for him. Really a nice guy. I knew that he had some mental issues. I would see him talking to himself occasionally, but I'd go by and I would say, "Hey, how you doing today?" And he would give me that smile and say, "I'm doing okay." And it was just really great to see him there. But I knew that he needed help, but he wouldn't ask for it, and he wouldn't accept any help. And I didn't know this here at the time, but he had sores developing on his leg, and they became really severely infected, to the point to where even maggots had began to grow in him. And our street med team would come out and they would work with him. And they would do this here sometimes twice a week, come out and tend to his wounds. And then he began to be more receptive. He began to receive the help. And one day they made a suggestion, and they asked him if he would like to go to the hospital and get some help. I knew that he was in pain. Even some of the merchants say, you need to check on him. You need to check on him. We can see even the drainage from his wounds, and we can even smell him. It had gotten that bad. And so I knew that he was in pain, and they were able to convince him to go and receive help, get into the hospital. And I mean, it's really one of the greatest victories, one of the best days of outreach that I've encountered since being in the outreach team. But now he's in a nursing home. As a matter of fact, he's even been reconnected with family.
Mm.
You know, so it's really a great success story. I love it. And I mean, he's just really doing great. And even some of the merchants are still asking, well, how's he doing? How's he doing? And I'm able to give them a really good report, you know, so it's really great.
So inspiring. And truly, Valerie, Morgan, Charles, Kathy are always sharing that, you know, all of our clients' successes, we credit to the support of our partners, the help of our partners. It takes that village, and we're grateful for all of the partners that have joined us today. I'd like to invite our first panelist, Marjorie White, the homeless administrator for DHS, to join us and provide us some updates on the city's strategic plan and the work that they're currently doing around homelessness. Marjorie? If you're talking, we can't hear you, Marjorie. You might be on mute.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, and I can see you. Thanks for being here, Marjorie.
Great. First and foremost, thank you so much for this invitation to be part of your training in this panel, and also for sharing the stories. I think it's so important that we tell these stories definitely more often. And we're just glad to be part of this village as well, as we all work together to move the needle in the right direction regarding homelessness. Regarding the homeless strategic plan, last year we did embark on this journey where we've had over 500 participants to participate in community input forums, whether it was with homeless service providers, our chambers of commerce, individuals and households that had experienced homelessness or currently experiencing homelessness, our faith-based organizations, the housing industry, and a plethora of other sort of industries to be part of this conversation, to talk about homelessness. What does it look like for this community? What is working well? What's not working well? Where can we make improvements? And what are some of the gaps? And also, how do we work collectively together to address it? Because what we found is that definitely the homeless system alone cannot address homelessness. Many of you all know that homelessness is very complex. People enter this this level of need from a variety of routes, whether it's breakdowns within the family, those coming out of the foster care system, those untreated mental health and substance use concerns, lack of affordable housing, domestic violence. I mean, the list goes on. And so understanding the complexity of it, and as well, the city alone cannot do it by themselves. What does this look like for this community? And so we have received the strategic plan. There was a little delay once COVID hit the community. But approval on December 16th at 2 p.m. During one of the city council briefings. So definitely, I strongly urge for you to chime in so that you can see what's going on, what the recommendations were. And one of the recommendations that we've really many of them we've already started making movements on behind the scenes was street outreach. As your outreach staff have indicated, there's definitely, we do a lot of great things, but there's also some great challenges that we have to look at. One being is that we don't have enough street outreach staff in our community. I think the number we can fit into a small room to cover a whole county. And so the city of San Antonio is working diligently to bring on more street outreach staff. So internally, we're bringing on a total of 12 outreach staff, which would be a mixture of both clinical staff and non-clinical staff, as well as social work interns. So we're working with UTSA, Our Lady of the Lake University, in addition to Fordham University in the Bronx, New York, to kind of have more boots on the ground. Also, we're working with our Continuum and other partners to look at what are the trainings that are needed for outreach staff in regards to safety, in regards to engaging clients, as well as looking at a protocol to determine how do we maneuver our system, as many folks have already stated, has been a challenge. So working with partners, whether shelter partners, rapid rehousing partners, even homeless prevention partners, to figure out how can we improve this system. And those conversations have already started happening. Another thing that we've been working on is making our system ready when our clients are saying yes. Oftentimes, I know Morgan and Valerie and Charles also mentioned, not having an ID. We're very fortunate to have partnered with the SAPD Hope Team, who you will hear from in a few minutes, about their work there and how they established that program. Well, we're glad to also be part of that by funding, as well as there's now going to be more of a joint oversight of that program with our division, homeless division, with DHS, the city clerk's office, as well as SAPD. And just listening to their stories, and even speaking to some of the clients who received their IDs. One of them told me, "Miss White, I'm legal now." And what he meant by that opened up more doors for him in regards to shelter, in regards to employment and housing as well. Another thing that we're doing is, as going back to the protocol, is we didn't have a protocol for outreach in this community where we can define what should it look like, what it should not look like, and what is that pathway to shelter, pathway to housing, pathway to other resources. And so we're looking at that in addition to looking at behavioral health beds and see how can we improve that transition, as well as increase that stock for detox beds or other sort of residential beds for mental health and substance use. We're very happy about taking that first step with partnering with Haven to actually reserve beds specifically for street outreach. And we're working with them still to kind of help streamline that process a little bit more, but that's a stepping stone in the right direction. And I'm sure Alberto and Molly will talk more about that, but we wanted to ensure that we don't lose that rapport when our clients say yes, because it was hard to get to that yes for many of our outreach staff. It doesn't always take one time or two times of engagement, but it may take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And when they finally say yes, we need to be ready. And so this is just some of the feedback that came, that was presented to us from the different work groups that were established. And I can tell you, it's been so helpful. And then with all of that, we were very fortunate to receive about $16.8 million from HUD recently as part of the Emergency Solutions Grant CARES Act, which is specifically around our homeless response regarding COVID. And so with that, we have been able to implement some of the recommendations, such as, like I said, street outreach, as well as our Homeless Connections hotline. Some of the feedback we got from constituents is that they don't know who to contact when folks are in need, or that hotline, which is listed on this slide, 210-207-1799, is open right now Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30, but we are looking to possibly extending those hours depending on the demand. Right now, we are going through that data to kind of do a more of a deep dive analysis of any trends. We are seeing a little uptick in households who are on the verge of homelessness because of eviction notices. So we're working closely with our prevention partners, including our City of San Antonio's Neighborhood Housing Department, to make sure that once again, when folks come to us, we're ready. I see the next bulleted item is our homeless resource hubs. So this is one of the initiatives regarding the COVID response as well. We opened them in April during a time where many of our shelters had closed their intakes to adhere to the CDC recommendations to ensure social distancing, to reduce the risk and exposure of COVID-19 among staff as well as clients. And so we were told that, you know, with shelters closing and many food pantries closing, restaurants had closed, you know, our neighbors experiencing unsheltered homelessness was left with nothing a bit. And so with these resource hubs, we started off with 4 where we were targeting areas where we knew had a high concentration of encampments, of recurring encampments. And so we had we had one at CAM, one at the San Fernando Gym, which is on the west side of downtown. We had one on Military and Goliad on the south side, and then we had one on Perrin Bidal on the northeast quarter of San Antonio. Since inception, we've served over about 55,000 meals and given out hygiene kits. We've had showers at these hubs as well. And then we've been very fortunate to have the ID recovery program there day at the San Fernando hub. Beginning tomorrow, we will be launching our new mobile shower program at the San Fernando hub, which will be in addition to the one that we currently run at Christian Assistance Ministries, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday from 8:30 to 11:30. And so this is an added resource to our clients and an added outreach resource as we continue to try to build rapport and trust with clients, engage with them, assess their needs to get them from this level of being unsheltered to higher level of care and stability. The Homeless Connection Hotline, as I mentioned before, is currently operational. We are recruiting more permanent staff to be there. That hotline has received over 3,000 calls. On that hotline, we do have diversion assessments happening where if you're on the verge of homelessness, but you just need a little more time to stabilize, we have partnered with our Homeless Continuum of Care, Sarah, to do an assessment that can see if you qualify for diversion funds. And within 7 days of that assessment, we're working to either put you in a hotel temporarily or assisting with rental arrears to keep you out of homelessness. So diversion's goal is to divert you from even entering our homeless system. And so we do have that there, as well as other resources for any household that may be at risk of or experiencing homelessness, looking to get connected to services. The new city council outreach positions. So as I stated before, we're hiring a total of 12 outreach. It's a mixture of coordinators and specialists. So the coordinators are mostly licensed social workers, and then the non-clinical staff are more general outreach, but they will all work together along with social work interns. I'm also hiring internally a homeless outreach manager to specifically help oversee our outreach initiative. And so that's where we're at the moment. I have made selections, although we do have a few postings still up. One of them, I think, actually closed on the 14th. That's a clinical position, but then I'll also be posting another posting for non-clinical outreach staff. So definitely, if you know folks who are interested and have a heart for this, please, I strongly urge them to go to our sanantonio.gov website, specifically the jobs section, and that's where you will find those postings. And so it's my hope to have majority of this staff on board by January. Another part of our outreach initiative is we're initiating a mobile app software. The reason why I did this is because we have a lot of folks touching the unsheltered population, and everyone is kind of documenting in different areas, whether it's on paper or in some HMIS, some non-HMIS, and just how do we create a platform for everyone to document in one area that will then interface with our homeless management information system, because it was important that it interface there. And so with that, there's also a mapping tool similar to what was talked about with the pit count with Centro. This would be citywide, where we can start really digging down into like some of the barriers, the issues, and how encampments are moving throughout this city. Okay. And so if you have any questions for me, definitely feel free to contact me. I can put my contact information in the chat box. But I just want to say just thank you for all that you do. You, as well as the many partners that are also on this call as well. I mean, that through that strategic planning process, one of the assets that were identified was the commitment of our partners in this community to address homelessness. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Marjorie.
Thank you so much, Marjorie.
Leadership during this crazy year. Your efforts have truly streamlined services and coordination among service providers, and you've been kind of that beacon for us. And we're very grateful to work so closely with you and your team. We're grateful for you.
Oh, thank you, and the feeling is mutual. Please know that.
Well, I'd love to introduce another friend at Haven for Hope. Molly wasn't able to join us, but Senior Director of Transformational Operations, Mr. Alberto Rodriguez, is here to chat with us today and provide us some updates on intake at Haven for Hope and all of the ways in which they have adapted and responded during this pandemic.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Jacqueline, for having us, and the rest of the group here. Thank you for everything that you all do. So as Jacqueline mentioned, I'm Alberto Rodriguez. I oversee our intake department at Haven for Hope. So since the beginning of COVID, we've had to make some very difficult decisions in an effort to keep all of our members and our clients safe, as well as our staff and our partner staff. So as many of y'all know, before COVID, we were sleeping about 1,500, 1,700 individuals here at Haven daily. With COVID and CDC guidelines, we knew that wasn't something we can keep doing. We were overflowing with clients. We didn't have the ability to social distance. So we made a very difficult decision on March 27th to close our intake department, knowing that we needed to socially distance and figure out how we can safely help our clients here at Haven. So once we were able to accomplish our social distancing goal, we were able to then start thinking about how to safely reopen our intake department. So we've done our intake department in phases. We are currently on phase 4 that we just implemented last Thursday. So with each phase, it's a new playbook, right, for all of us with COVID. None of us have the perfect answer as to how do we go about this safely, but it is keeping our clients in mind. So with phase 1, we opened up our intake department. We saw quickly that wasn't going to work. We were requiring everyone to social distance based on CDC guidance and to quarantine fully for 7 days based on CDC guidance. Well, that's difficult for our clients, both mental health, substance use, or just the ability to not, to have to stay in a room isolated by themselves, no contact, even though meals are being delivered to them, they have their own bed, they have their own shower, they have their own TV. It is still difficult. It'd be difficult for me to stay at home without being able to go out and do much, or at least having the option to be able to step outside the door and take a breath of fresh air, right? So with current phase 4, what we're doing is we're focusing on our hotel that the city has graciously partnered with us to be able to obtain. So with this hotel, we enroll everyone directly into the hotel. Individuals are able to stay in their own room. It's the least of our congregate settings, being that they have their own showers, they have their own restrooms. So with that, they're able to stay socially distanced for the majority of the day. They're able to leave the hotel room once a day for essential activities, just like the rest of the community. While they're out, they do have to socially distance and they have to wear their mask at all times. After the hotel, we also have our campus and our courtyard program. So for campus, that is one of the programs where we do have a little bit of stricter requirements because we do have children on our campus. We have to require that everyone have a state or government issued ID for campus. Courtyard and hotel, we don't have that requirement since we don't serve children into either of those programs. So Courtyard, we're able to enroll registered sex offenders. We're able to enroll individuals without IDs. Hotel, it's a combination of both. They have to either be known to Haven for Hope in the past, have a previous non-COVID enrollment, and or have a state or government issued ID, for the same reasons that we do have to check registered sex offense status for the hotel as well. So we extended our hours during COVID, Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. We are working on extending hours into the evenings for outreach teams. We don't have that information set up just yet. We barely talked about this last week. So we will provide more information to the outreach teams, the city and San Antonio Police Department to know what that process is going to look like. But with that process, we will be requiring some training, not requiring, but we will be encouraging some training here at Haven to know of all of our resources. Again, our biggest thing is ensuring that each client that comes in can get an enrollment. So with the hotel, the courtyard, and campus, the eligibility requirements can get difficult for outreach workers to remember what requirement is for which program. And then within our campus program, we have Thrive, we have Pay It Forward, we have ITP. So it's a lot of different eligibility requirements. So we're hoping with these extended hours for our outreach teams as they identify individuals that are seeking shelters specifically during this cold weather, that they're able to bring them in, and our intake staff will assess as to what program eligibility they would be able to, but then also being able to offer something right then and there. So again, more info to come on those extended hours in the evenings and weekends. As soon as we have that ready, we'll go ahead and share that out. We'll be having some trainings internally as well for all those staff and outreach workers that will be making those referrals and those direct warm handoffs. But for now, again, I just want to stress our intake department, our campus is very safe. I don't think we expected this when COVID was going to happen, or when COVID was first announced, right? And we all just thought, like, how is this going to affect us? But we're doing everything we can to keep everyone safe. So if you out there see anyone that's willing to receive our services, please let them know we're available, we're open, and we're here for them. One of the other requirements too that Morgan and Valerie mentioned is that availability for detox beds. So that's something that we're working through as well with CHCS. Being that we are not a medical campus, or we don't have medical providers on our campus, even though we do have Centro Med right outside the gate, we cannot take any individuals that are detoxing from substances at this time. So we refer them over to Detox, and then we work with Detox to be able to either bring them onto campus courtyard or the hotel, or into their ITP programming upon discharge. So that's something that the community as a whole, we're struggling with, seeing a lot more individuals with substance use and wanting and or needing detox services. For our campus and our courtyard, we do continue to test for COVID. So each individual that comes in gets tested, then they sleep in our separation area until we get their negative test results. If for whatever reason they do test positive, we then refer them over to the city's ICF, isolation care facility, to be able to then quarantine there. And then we arrange for the transportation back to Haven for Hope, or to Haven for Hope upon completion of that quarantine period.
Well, thank you so much, Alberto, for the update and the great news about extended hours. I know that change to intake will make a huge impact on the work that our outreach team does, and break down some additional barriers for our clients. Thank you so much for being with us today.
No problem.
And yeah, last but certainly not least, I'd like to welcome Lieutenant Barrigan and our partners at the San Antonio Hope team. These guys are incredible and invaluable partners. Take it away, guys. And if you guys are speaking, we can't hear you. You may be muted. Or they may be experiencing technical difficulties. I've been texting on and off, and I think they joined the call and were dropped from the call and joined again. If you guys are there, we'd love to hear from you, but if for some reason you couldn't join back in, that's okay. We can reconnect with you guys later. All right, it could be that they are not able to join us today. Morgan and Valerie, would you guys be willing to step in here and kind of talk about the ways that we work in coordination and partnership with the folks at SAPD?
Absolutely. So SAPD, along with like the mental health unit, which are also obviously police officers, have been a huge help to us. We've got a significant amount of clients who struggle with mental illness, a significant amount of clients who have a criminal history. So they've helped us in many ways to kind of, again, sometimes we feel like that the different hats we put on, sometimes we put on that detective hat where we try to find out before we go further with engaging with an individual, what their history looks like, especially if they're struggling with mental illness. Have they been emergency detained over and over again? Do they have a history of criminal activity? So we kind of know what we're walking into, and also what those challenges are for the client if they have a history of aggression, where that comes from. Again, we're dealing with the homeless population, but I want you guys to really realize kind of what our experience as an outreach team in helping these individuals is that their issue is not homelessness. Their homelessness is absolutely a symptom of something deeper, of their mental illness or of their traumas that they've experienced in life. They've gotten let down by the system sometimes, a very challenging system to navigate through, or they're just not ready. So communicating with SAPD has been helpful, especially recently, and when we, as we're dealing with a population that does struggle with mental illness, we cannot enforce help. I don't know if you guys know how the system works. I can't make someone get into the truck and go get the help that I know that I want them to get, but that they're just not ready for. Sometimes the demographic of clients that we're helping don't even know that they need that help. So they're at a level where they're putting themselves at risk or in harm, or they're putting others in harm. And that's where the mental health unit steps in. They wholeheartedly kind of take the ropes and help that client, and they have the ability to enforce that kind of help that client may need. Not just in the first engagement, but just continuing to engage. Recently, we had a couple calls from PD letting us know that some of our individuals over the weekend or over the night when we're not downtown, like, hey, this person was detained or this person was put into the hospital. So we're able to piggyback on and contact the hospital, go visit the client, see what is going on with them. We've actually been able to make connections with the case managers in the hospitals to kind of see how we can work together to get that individual off the streets. Those are connections that we wouldn't have been able to do without the communication of Light Patrol. So we're always dealing with the same people downtown, same situations sometimes new situations. So we get a lot of calls like that, and then we reach out to them for those reasons as well.
Thank you so much, Valerie. That's super helpful. And I just got a message from Lieutenant Barrigan. He is on the line, and hopefully you can jump in. Let's see. Any luck, Lieutenant? Let's give him a minute. If you're speaking, you may be muted. Okay, if we may still be having some technical difficulties, I might have to unmute him. Let's see here. See if I can do that. No, you're not muted. Oh, it looks like you're unmuted. Go ahead. Still having some issues. That's okay. We're grateful to walk alongside you every day, to work closely with you guys, and we can't thank you enough for all of the assistance and the support that you give our team, our ambassadors, for keeping downtown safe. Your presence there makes me feel comfortable, and we're very grateful for you. So moving on to the next slide, Priscilla, I just wanted to make sure that everyone on the call had some important contact information. Let's move one slide ahead.
Jackie, one moment. I have Lieutenant ready for you.
Oh, great. Excellent.
Okay, Lieutenant, you're ready.
Do you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. Well, I was listening and then I got kicked off, and I guess I don't have, this is a city computer, so we don't have a camera. And now when I was trying to speak, finding out we didn't even have a microphone on this city computer. So I'm watching you on the screen, but one of my guys set me up with the phone here. Anyway.
The brave new world. Thank you for joining us.
It's a techie world. I've been listening to everything you guys have been doing, some priceless, fantastic work. I've got one of my Hope guys in here with me, Jared Herrera. He just got back from the ID recovery out there. He's going to mention a few things about some of the topics you have up here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared, for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for having us. So I'm looking at the slide update. For anybody that isn't aware, we are currently hosting ID recovery on Mondays from 8 to 10 a.m. at the San Fernando, or previously San Fernando Boxing Gym, where the hub is set up at 319 West Travis. And we are there. We open the doors at 8 a.m. For those of you that may be listening, if you're sending clients, we usually tell people that the line will start forming usually around 7 a.m. So even though we don't open the doors till 8, people get there as early as 7, probably even earlier. We do the best we can with limited resources. I know Morgan and Valerie have been out there a few times, maybe some others. We try, well, we don't try. We don't turn people away. We just get to a point where, because of time restraints and, like I said, lack of resources with things being different these days with COVID and whatnot, we have to try to squeeze as many people as we can in that 2-hour time frame. The ones that don't make it in, we still assist them the best we can before we leave. Some of them we redirect to our office throughout the rest of the week, or some of them we may make other appointments to try to meet up with them, or depending on where they're at in the process, have them, bring us whatever documents they may have. So that's our big day right now. We are still, so a lot of people ask, well, what about the rest of the week? What do you guys do? Well, the rest of the week, we're busy running people out to DPS, running people or meeting people at the Vital Records office to get birth certificates, dropping paperwork off, applications at the Social Security office. So our week is always full. And then in between, like I said, we have people that show up here at the Bike Patrol office that we're helping on a case-by-case basis. So even though we may only make it, I think the last month or two, we've been averaging anywhere from 30 to 50 clients in that 2-hour time frame. That doesn't necessarily mean those are the only people we're helping in that week. I think last week we ran our numbers on active cases, and I want to say we broke 100 active cases. So that means we have 100 individuals that are along some point of the process, whether they're waiting to go to DPS, waiting for their Social Security card to come in so they can go to DPS, out-of-state birth certificates, people that maybe already have everything they need, they're just waiting to get an appointment. So like I said, it's a very long, very tenuous process that a lot of people get to come see us, and we are actively helping upwards of 100 people. So just send your clients, feel free to reach out to us individually if need be. We do our best to try to accommodate as many as we can. And any of you are welcome on Mondays to come out and kind of see firsthand what the ID recovery looks like. It is an eye-opener. It's something to see the process to kind of help you understand. Like Morgan and Valerie have been attending for quite some time, and I'm sure they can say from the beginning to now that they've learned a lot. And that's about it. Central outreach team, again, Morgan and Valerie, some of the other workers that are there at the hub that come by. That's about it. I don't know if you have any questions.
A couple of things from me before I pass it over. Observations we're seeing in the morning, they're doing the wake ups, obviously from the Central wake up between 5:30 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. They're waking up at least 25 to 35 individuals in the morning to get them out of the thresholds of the businesses. We're seeing an uptick of people from outside San Antonio coming into San Antonio. So what we're doing, we have a database, we're IDing these people and finding out why they're here and how long they've been here. And like even this morning, you're talking about coordinating with Centro outreach teams and your ambassadors. I got a call. I was at the bike school this morning with they were teaching a bike school. I got a call from Pacheco. He found a gun. He thought it was a Glock, a handgun inside a flower pot down there. Ended up being a BB gun, but it's you guys are always our eyes and ears out there, and we came and took the gun away. It could have been involved in a robbery, who knows? Even though it was a BB gun, it looked like a real gun. So just a great partnership working, and you guys, your team out there, your ambassadors out there being our eyes and ears, it's awesome. And you always have the number, 207-7764. Call that number. It's manned. The only time it's not manned is between 3:30 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. The other times it's going to be manned by an officer, and we'll get someone out there. We can be anywhere downtown within a short time. That's it.
That's fantastic. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know those technical issues were challenging this morning, but again, I can't reiterate enough the partnership that we have with you guys is so important, so valuable, and it allows us to be more effective in the work that we do. And we're all working towards the same goal, and that's to create a safe, welcoming, beautiful space downtown. Priscilla, if you move ahead to the next slide, we can just, summarize and recap all of the resources that are available. These are some really important contacts. There's the DHS Homeless Connections Hotline, which Marjorie shared earlier. Want to reiterate, if you need support with our Centro ambassador services or our homeless outreach services, you can call our operations headquarters. The number is 210-224-7747. For assistance with law enforcement at the street level, downtown, please call the Bike Patrol. The number is 207-7764. Park Police generally assist with the Riverwalk and the parks in the downtown area. Their number is listed here as well. Non-emergency line, and of course, in an emergency, always call 911. Moving ahead to our last slide. I'm super pleased and excited to announce that Centro has or will soon receive ESG funding from the City of San Antonio to expand our homeless outreach program. And we plan to hire 2 additional outreach specialists and 1 clinical social worker. So as Marjorie mentioned earlier, please, if you're interested or you know someone who's interested in applying for those positions, they will be posted very soon. Please stay in touch with us. And now we've reached the end. We want to thank everyone who's joined us today. And we'd like to share the floor or open the floor up to those with questions. If you haven't already, please type your comments in the chat box or your questions in the chat box. We'll try to answer as many as we can. The first we wanted to respond to was a question that we received from a member of our community prior to this presentation. Gailey Rainey emailed earlier this week, I am interested in how you were trying to help the mentally ill homeless. I know that this is a large portion of your homeless population, but I'm acquainted with an individual who has not been able to stay at Haven due to his mental illness and has spent the last year on the streets. We have not known how to assist him. So I'm going to first pass this over to the Centro team. Can you tell us about the ways that our team is assisting clients struggling with mental illness?
Absolutely, Jackie. So this kind of circles back around to what we were talking about when we were just kind of letting you guys know how we collaborate with SAPD and also Park Police. When a significant amount of our clients are mentally ill, many of them untreated. That's why it's a benefit to us to be able to access information on them, to know, you know, one, what are their diagnoses just from what we assess. We're not doctors, so we can only kind of you know, assume what they might be struggling with. Knowing if they're on medication or not. The reason that's so important to our team is because if we know that someone who is usually going untreated but has recently started taking meds, then we know that's a really good opportunity to engage and really offer them some long-term help. You know, it's really tough because just as a community, you know, there probably isn't, or there isn't enough mental health services that to cover the need, especially for someone who's not funded, for someone who doesn't have insurance or have any income. It's hard to find services available to them in general. So once they are ready for help, or let me back that up. A lot of them are not ready for help. We cannot enforce that. You know, like I said, we can't make them get the help that we think they need. What we can do though is continue to build rapport with them when they are approachable. We can continue to keep a paper trail, whether it's, you know, they're putting themselves at harm or whatever the case is, with the proper people who can enforce that help that they need. Because a lot of our clients aren't, you know, they don't qualify for shelters because they need a higher level of care. On top of their mental illness, a lot of them have a disability, a physical disability. So that's another challenge. So.
Yeah, and so a lot of them, I guess the first and foremost question is when you encounter somebody, or like with this person who submitted the question, is she's wondering, I guess, what she can do, what we can do. The first question when you're working specifically with such a mentally ill population is that you have to ask them, like, or you have to gauge, which is what we do, is if they're willing to acknowledge the fact that they have mental illness. Because if they're not, then our hands are extra tied. So like, for example, we've got several people downtown that honestly don't consider that, they don't think that they're homeless. Several of them think that they own the hotels downtown, that they're millionaires, that they're married to famous people. And I can't help somebody who's not willing to admit that A, they're homeless, and B, that they need help with their mental illness. Now, if they are wanting help and they're willing to acknowledge the fact that I do have a mental illness and I need help, then we can start to make a little bit more traction. Now, a large majority, or I guess some of our population that has that mental illness do receive that disability. So they do have Medicaid or Medicare. We're able to work a little bit more freely with that. Haven for Hope is not always the best option or an option to them at all. So we do try to look at other options for them. For our more mentally ill individuals, we do try to get them into group homes because that's the setting that is more appropriate for them. And it's much smaller, and you know, they can kind of pay their way through that process. So we'll help with that. In the past, we've assisted clients with, you know, getting them to their appointments with CHCS, or getting them or walking them there for a walk-in. So that they can be assessed and be seen. And sometimes, again, as I've mentioned throughout this entire presentation, it's going to take that hand holding, that literal hand holding. Come on, let's go to your appointment, or, you know, remind them. They don't know what day of the week it is. They don't know that at Wednesday at 1 they have an appointment. So that's our job. We're going to come in, we're going to remind them leading up to that. We're going to get them to that appointment so that they can take those steps forward and potentially get on their medication and do the things that they need to do. But it is a very difficult population to work with, especially for those that are not willing to acknowledge they have any issues at all.
In regards to the city's investment to address the mental health and substance concern amongst the homeless, we do have a few contracts in place, one being with the Center for Healthcare Services, their integrated treatment program, where there's 3 tracks. One is for mental health only, second substance use, and then the third one is a combination of both. Within their contract, we do indicate that referrals from street outreach is a priority. And so that's one investment. Another one is we've partnered with our SAPD mental health detail, where we're funding 3 clinicians who help provide that intensive case management. And within that team, the unsheltered population is also a priority. So that's also another resource for you. With all of our SAPD officers though, if anyone's at risk, or if they're decompensating and are a risk to themselves as well as others, they do have the authority to do an emergency detention. And so that's also a tool if needed, and if a client falls into those sort of categories. And then once again, a part of our outreach strategy is having a mixture of the clinical team as well as the non-clinical team as well, to kind of help us maneuver this system. And then, something that your outreach staff also mentioned was, those who can't meet their ADLs, their daily living skills. So we are looking at that to possibly, we're looking at a model to see if that could possibly work using some of the ESG CARES funding. It's still in its early stages. We had a call last week with our homeless continuum of care to talk about what about these folks who cannot, shelter's not an appropriate setting for them because of the complexity of their cases. And so further information to come regarding that. And then one more thing, sorry. The Bridges to Care initiative, which is, it's definitely being led by our faith-based community in partnership with the Homeless Division, where we're looking at how can the congregations also serve as a resource for mental health, and how do we bridge that connection with them. Working with our faith-based community is a great opportunity. They have a lot of resources, as well as they're not always held to the HUD regulations that sometimes limit us. And so ensuring that partnership. And so even the outreach staff, both contracted and the internal staff we're bringing on board, will be part of this initiative. Excuse me.
That's a very interesting development, kind of layering in the faith-based community. There are similar questions in here, and I think related to options for those that have severe mental illness. But there's also a question specific to our point in time counts, and this comes from Garrett Berenger with KSAT 12 News. He points out that Centro's point in time counts are indicating a steady level of homelessness downtown despite the pandemic. He'd like to know what the city and what Haven for Hope is seeing independently. Does this track with the larger picture? And why do you believe this is or isn't the case? Alberto, do you want to start and respond to what you guys are seeing in terms of increases in homelessness?
If he's not there, I can go ahead and start, no worries. I'm
Perfect.
sorry, I just started choking a bit. But in regards to the question about is the trend that you're seeing downtown different or similar to what we're seeing on a city county level? So I'm just going to refer back to our 2020 point in time count, which is an annual assessment of homelessness on a given night. This recent count did indicate 2,932 clients experiencing homelessness, which was definitely a 2% increase from 2019, where that number was 2,972. But within that breakdown, there was a 7% increase in the unsheltered population. And so we do know that, with in the midst of COVID, the visibility of homelessness has increased, but also our point in time count has also indicated that as a county. But there was an increase there, but we also saw a 15% decrease in chronic homelessness, a slight decrease by 1% in families experiencing homelessness, 5% decrease in domestic violence survivors, or individuals experiencing homelessness that are fleeing domestic violence. We did see a decrease there, as well as a decrease in veteran homelessness by 4%. And so although we did see that there were some achievements in some areas regarding the unsheltered population, we just need to, like part of this whole outreach strategy of bringing more folks on board and prepping our system. When we looked at our system, we found oftentimes this group is kind of excluded because they're not meeting the eligibility criteria for an intervention. And so that's why we're trying these different mechanism or initiatives to kind of address that.
Thank you, Marjorie. I'm not sure if Alberto's still on the line. If he is, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, I'd like to share with Garrett that we'll follow up with you after this panel discussion and to answer any additional questions that you might have and connect you with our partners. Alberto, would you like to add anything? If you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay. There were some questions about the winter clothing drive from Brittany Greenfield. Brittany, I encourage you to visit westoncenter.com/winter-wear, and you'll find a bunch of information about this campaign. It kicked off, like I said, in early November, and it'll close out next week on Monday. So we have all of this week to continue making donations, and all of the specifics on times and all the tactical stuff is online. So please visit Weston Center's website for more information. Marco, you had a question about whether or not this panel discussion would be recorded. It is being recorded, and we will be sure to share this out via email or any other way we can get it to interested parties. There's some really interesting questions in here about other cities in the United States and how they're responding to homelessness. Ann Horst posed a question: have you considered the San Diego model of having a church system where homeless stay for 2 weeks on a rotating system during the cold months? Marjorie, I know you work very closely with the faith-based community. Do you want to speak to that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So regarding that question, I have reached out to our liaison, who we're very fortunate to have in this office, to look at that, given that it is cold weather season. Some of the shelters may be filling up because this is a high peak time. What are some, do we currently have any congregations that have shelters in place where maybe there's a possible partnership? So that conversation has started, but we haven't made a final determination of which route we're going to go. But we are increasingly improving our partnerships with the faith-based community to address homelessness.
Wonderful. Anne also posed another question. She says, is there a possibility of investing of building a community first? She's referencing Austin, tiny home community for low income, single mom, homeless, and mentally ill people.
So so I don't know if you're familiar with Catholic Worker House, but they are working towards having a more of a community first village, similar to what's in Austin with tiny homes. So they have already, I believe, purchased the land, and they're just, working through the details to get that up and running. And that their target population, though, is the chronic homeless that I think 50 years and above.
That's amazing. That's great news. We'd love to hopefully learn more about that in the future. Mm-hmm. There's a question in here from Cynthia Garza, wondering whether or not the city is providing housing at a hotel downtown and how much longer they will be there.
So we have partnered with Haven for Hope to pay for a hotel. As part of the CDC regulations, as I stated earlier, that we have to ensure social distancing. Well, that the number of clients on that campus and social distancing was working. And so to help expand that capacity, we are leasing a hotel, which is an extension of their campus at this time. We are evaluating to see if we need to possibly open up an additional one, especially targeting the clients who aren't appropriate for shelter, can't meet their ADLs, are of age, and just complex cases as we try to get them situated. We are having that conversation now.
That's fantastic. Marjorie, I know that there is a flyer that exists because I have a copy of it that shows details about the homeless resource hubs and the times and services offered there. I can share that with our guests today after this panel discussion, but it's also available online on the DHS website. Is that correct?
That's correct. It should be there. If it's not, I'll definitely look at it because we do need to update it to include the mobile shower program, which begins tomorrow. Yeah. And within that flyer, we were very fortunate to work with many organizations to help us with these hubs, to help us even coordinate like who's doing lunch, who's doing dinner, to ensure that these clients were taken care of during the midst of this pandemic and even during the holidays. Many of them served Thanksgiving Day, the day after Thanksgiving, but we have weekly calls with them. And I think that's something the pandemic did. It helped us to work closer together and coordinate, especially with partners that may not have been part of the full homeless continuum of care. And so that flyer does entail the different partners who are serving the homeless during this time.
Awesome. And there are so many. There's so many of them.
It's been amazing. Like even with the number of meals, trust me, that was not just the city of San Antonio. We had wonderful partners, and I'm sure some are on this call. Corazon Ministries, Centro, Catholic Charities had their mobile shower out there on the south side. Sam Ministries, their outreach team was helping to manage that as well.
Christian Assistance Ministries.
Christian Assistance Ministries is a hub where we have that shower program there. We've just it's been awesome to see how the community came together. Law enforcement, the list goes on.
On and on and on.
I'm just a team of 4. I was 3 for a while. We're gradually bringing folks on, and we couldn't do this by ourselves. So.
Yeah, I feel like we're a large team. There's a larger team at work here doing amazing work. Chuck Paul is on with us today, and he also wants us to share information on the RMYA Centro Seguro Drop-In Center for Youth. Minors and young adults can be brought in 24/7 at 3103 West Avenue. 24/7 hotline is listed here, 210-340-8090. Minors can also go to any YMCA or Quick Trip, which are safe place sites. These sites will call the hotline and we'll pick them up. So that is great. And RMYA works with young adults up to age 24. Thank you, Chuck, for sharing that. There's so much love in this chat box for all of the panelists on the call: Morgan, Valerie, Charles, Kathy, Marjorie, our friends at Haven, at PD. Everyone sees you and appreciates the work that you're doing. Let's see here. We've got a bunch of inquiries about these positions that are opening up. We'll make sure that we share everything with you guys after this call. Here's another quick follow-up on the PIT count. Yeah, and to your point, Marjorie, the last annual point in time count was conducted for the last calendar year. There's an upcoming point in time count this year in January. where we will be able to get some updated numbers and statistics. Let's see. So it's another question about whether or not we perceive that the numbers have increased this year. But I think once that annual pit count is done, we should have a better idea. Do we know, Marjorie, when those results will be released or shared with the community?
Yeah, so it's released by our Continuum of Care, Sarah, at South Alamo Regional Alliance for the Homeless. But just to follow up on that, that second part of the question, one of the reasons why you're seeing it more prevalent is because we also suspended our coordinated encampment outreaches as well during the pandemic, specifically from March to about July. And within that time, there was a buildup of encampments, especially with the debris, because we weren't addressing them, which was also another CDC recommendation. Now, right now, our priorities include encampments where there's criminal activity, as well as those where there's a high risk of health and safety concerns. And so when you talk about the it's more visible, that's also part of the reason as well.
Okay, that's very helpful. Final question, last call for others who have questions before we wrap it up. Robert Abram asks, does Centro or DHS have funding for mental health services, group homes, etc.? On the Centro side, we do not have funding specifically allocated to mental health services. However, with the ESG Cares funding that we will receive from the city, we will be hiring a clinical social worker. So that's a big game changer for us. Marjorie, can you respond to the question about group homes, etc.?
So when we were talking about, we're looking into it. When you were talking about earlier about, once again, that highly vulnerable, can't meet ADLs, we're trying to see whether or not that's even an option in regards to funding that sort of service. You know, with the HUD funds, you know, it's great. However, there are sometimes some limitations. And so we're just trying to assess what's the best approach for it. So whether that's contracting beds or developing a program or reserving a hotel room, we're still evaluating all options.
Great. And it's good to know that you guys are talking about it. There are things kind of in the pipeline. And that will wrap it up. I think that concludes our panel for today. Thank you all so much for being here, to the panelists for participating, to all of our guests today for listening and hopefully learning something. This will not be the last that you will have an opportunity to hear from this team. We hope to have future info sessions to really hone in on specific issues and some of the very the really great work that we're doing related to the various adventures that we have throughout the course of this work. So please stand by, stay tuned. There will be more to come. And please feel free to reach out to our team, reach out to Marjorie and all of our other partners with additional questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Continue to do the awesome work you do.
Likewise.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.